Welcome to Access Utah. I'm Tom Williams. I recently saw coverage of Lauren Grabelle's photo exhibit, Dear Diary, in Deseret Magazine. We're going to talk with her today, not only about Dear Diary, but about many things. She says originally from New Jersey, she moved to Montana to heal the wounds that are created by living in the most densely populated state and being so isolated from nature. She says, my photography falls in the matrix where fine art and documentary meet, where I can tell truths about our relationships to other people, animals, nature, and ourselves. My work is about empathy. And a fine art and editorial photographer, Lauren Grabelle, is based in Big Fork, Montana, and joins us by Zoom today. Lauren Grabelle, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, perfect.
Grabelle. Okay. All right. Very good. And we're kind of a caveat here. Anytime we're, talking about visual arts, radio is kind of an awkward medium for that, but I found it usually goes okay. And photographers, I think, are pretty interesting folks, interesting viewpoint on the world. So I'm happy to be talking to you today. I want to start with kind of your personal journey. So I just read part of your bio there, originally from New Jersey. And you say in there you moved to Montana to heal the wounds that are created by living in the most densely populated state, being isolated from nature. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, in where I'm from in New Jersey, actually was very much like where I landed in Montana when I was growing up. But as an adult, if you wanted to go for a hike, you had to calculate in Jersey Shore beach traffic in order to get there. And so it kind of stopped people from doing that. And then I did live 2 blocks away from a little arboretum that had some nature trails in it. And I found myself on the mayor appointed me to the Shade Tree Commission because I had gone to him kind of complaining about the lack of care of the space. And so then I was on the Shade Tree Commission. And then during that time, I came out to Montana for the first time in 2009 and was kind of blown away by all the trees. And here I was in New Jersey trying to save one tree in this arboretum. And yet up here in the northwest of Montana were so many. Anyway, so yeah, I felt very disconnected from nature and decided it was time to live in it instead of just visiting it.
So what was that? Was there culture shock? I guess in nature shock, if that's a phrase, was moving to Montana?
No. I'm going to say no. It surprisingly wasn't. The nature felt like home to me. I lived in LA briefly in my 40s and had taken a wilderness travel course with the Sierra Club. So the mountains were inviting to me as opposed to intimidating. And no, I immediately felt creatively inspired. I felt free of all the distractions of life where you go out and it's just strip mall after strip mall after strip mall, buy me, buy me, buy me, the whole consumer society. And there was, at the time I moved here, very little of that. It is changing very fast in the Flathead Valley.
So this is in the general kind of Missoula area?
No, I'm about 2 hours north of Missoula.
2 hours. So not strictly the
Yeah.
Missoula area. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty rural, I guess, but that's changing, you say?
Very quickly. Yes.
Yeah. Is this what COVID folks, people who discovered, people who can work from
Yes.
anywhere kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And, when I first came here, like where I grew up on the Jersey Shore, we didn't have a traffic light in my town. It was all horse farms, dairy farms, and fruit orchards. And that's what the Flathead Valley was when I first came here. And that is all rapidly disappearing.
Yeah, so that's stereotypes. When you said you're from New Jersey, I was thinking, big city. So you were in the rural part of New Jersey.
Well, when in the 60s and 70s, when I was growing up, it was rural. It is certainly less so now. My mom kind of always reminded me that the name of the street I grew up on was Farm Edge Lane. And she said, and where's the farm? Like it was the first kind of suburban neighborhood in that community, built, I think, like in the late 50s. So, time and progress in quotes. So yeah, so when I came here, it was like returning to my childhood and getting to, go down the dirt road and go play in the creek, and, all of that and that creek and that road still exists. I was just back in New Jersey 2 weeks ago, and I went down there, and but everything is paved over.
Hmm. Did you always have an interest in photography? How did you get into photography?
Yeah. Well, my mom is really the inspiration. My mom, as a teenager, was a studio assistant to some photographers in New York where she grew up. And particularly, she assisted Peter Bash, who was at the time, a very well-known glamour photographer. So she is also the one that always had the camera and was always photographing her children. And we have, beautiful photo albums that she put together of, us growing up. And then I'd say in kindergarten, I got a Kodak Instamatic. And I remember being very excited walking around different places with my mom. And I'd notice that we'd point our cameras at the same thing. And that would like excite me that we both kind of noticed the same things. And then I think in eighth grade, I got my first SLR. She gave me her Pentax. Um, and that was kind of it. And then I studied photography in high school. Um, and I wanted to go to art school, but my parents were not for that.
Mm.
So there was a little circuitous kind of path where I eventually ended up at NYU studying anthropology, but studied photography in the summers and on the side. So yeah, so it was kind of, and at that point I was like, oh, I can combine these things. And then I ended up interning for National Geographic Television, which at the time was just a 2-hour program on Sundays on TBS called National Geographic Explorer. So I worked for them, and then I kind of attempted to have a photo career, and it didn't go very well for me.
But eventually you've had success, right? You've won
It
awards
depends
and
on your,
everything. Yeah.
yes, depending on your definition of success. But I will say I have fought for that, and
Ah, yes.
yes, it's a at the time when I graduated college in 91 and was working at Geographic in 92, and then I went to the Eddie Adams workshops, which were, something that you had to be accepted into. Eddie Adams was a photojournalist. He took the photo of in Saigon of the general being shot. And he often would host, and then they still have it, he's deceased now, but they would invite 100 of the top young photojournalists up to his farm in upstate New York and then mentor you. It was a very uncomfortable, sexist industry at the time. And I did not have the skills to navigate it comfortably. So I kind of, that's
Hmm.
ended up being a wedding photographer. And then I kind of deviated and became an artist and then squeezed in some photojournalism in between.
Do before we get into your artistic career, any stories, good or bad, from being a wedding photographer? That's
Oh,
any bridezillas that you had to encounter. I don't know. Uh,
yes. um,
good and bad, I guess, with that.
the good and the bad. Well, I will tell you, the very first wedding I ever did, it was just, I was invited by somebody I had worked on a film with. At the time, I was kind of doing stills photography and art directing independent films at Columbia and NYU graduate schools. And one of the people I worked with was getting married on Martha's Vineyard. And he was like, oh, why don't you come photograph my wedding? And, it was a trip to Martha's Vineyard and people I knew. And I photographed it, and I absolutely loved the work I created. I was so surprised. I mean, like many people, I was kind of down on the whole wedding thing. And this was in 1995. There wasn't a lot of non-traditional wedding photography, and that's what I ended up kind of creating, was more documentary work. I really loved the work. And then I started doing it. And I will say I've shot over 150 weddings. I did win some awards doing that, and I really loved my clients. Some of them I'm still friends with. It was kind of the kind of job where I went to work, but everybody who I was with was at a party. So a lot of times when you go to a job, everybody's at work and there's this kind of sometimes negative energy, But when I went to work, it was a big party. And so that was kind of wonderful. I will say I shot about 150 weddings by about 2008. Particularly, it was the Lehman Brothers crash in September of that year. And because I was in the New York area, I kind of saw the writing on the wall that a lot of the rich fathers of brides were maybe not going to be spending that kind of money the following year. And I will say the internet, and when you mentioned Bridezilla, I will say Pinterest created Bridezillas. Prior to Pinterest, and this is, early internet, brides were just so excited that they found me, and they would just be like, Lauren, just do your thing and trust me. But when Pinterest came around, these brides started kind of demanding certain imagery, and that's not really how I worked. And that kind of takes the emotional, empathic quality away when a bride is like dictating, oh, photograph my dress against this window. And suddenly there's these shots that they are expecting, as opposed to just wanting the magic to happen of what I captured. And so, yeah, eventually I kind of got away from it. But to be honest, also when I moved to Montana, brides here get married much younger. And I was pretty much always photographing people maybe just a little bit younger than me. And there was less of a connection. And so I kind of just stopped doing the wedding photography.
Yeah, interesting to have insight into that world. Yeah. I want to get into talking about some of your fascinating projects. Let's start with Dear Diary. This is where I encountered you in the Deseret Magazine, as I mentioned. So I'll just read a line here from this article that accompanies the photographs. The writer says, Lauren Grabelle has always photographed the liminal, the edge of civilization, spaces between where humans and animals live. And you talk about empathy as well. There's an interesting video that you can find at your website of you not only took photographs using a trail cam, right, but video. The video was so striking to me because you have these deer. I guess this is at night, right? And they trigger the trail cam. Some of the deer come right up to the camera. They're looking at you, right? Essentially looking back at them. Tell me about this project.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for looking at the video. It's my favorite part of the entire project. And it was a surprise. I did not set out necessarily to make a video. But the backstory is that I had been working for quite a few years on my series, The Last Man. And then I got accepted to a portfolio review at Chico Hot Springs in Montana. That's, you get juried into it to go, and they kind of help you package your projects and maybe get a book deal and publish a book. And that's kind of where I wanted to go with the Last Man project. And while I was there, this very lovely man, Ben Brody, who was one of my reviewers, he looked at all the work from The Last Man, and he goes, you have so much work here. You need to stop shooting. I give you permission to stop shooting. And you need to just spend time figuring out what to do with the work you have. Like, because it's very hard. When he told me this, I did listen to him, but I did miss my mornings having coffee, sitting at my computer, looking to see maybe what I had on my camera or my iPhone. I would say 75% of the imagery on my website for The Last Man is iPhone photography. And so I really loved that morning routine of like editing, seeing if I had anything exciting from the day before. And I missed it because Ben had said, oh, you should stop shooting. So somehow in the back of my head, I thought, oh, I'll just I'll put my trail cam up somewhere, and it had always been up, but I didn't always get anything. I was mostly would get grizzly bear, mountain lion, things, animals that were unpredictable. So I'm like, oh, I'll just put the trail cam up. I don't actually have to be doing the shooting, but I still get to do the editing part, and I'll still have something to post on Instagram, which as a photographer, it's kind of not something you have to do, but keep your presence out there. And so I chose to move the trail cam from where it had mostly been to a place where I knew that the deer were going to be more predictable, and that I would capture something. And so it did kind of work in that way. Like I wasn't out actively shooting, and I could be thinking about my career and promoting myself. And lo and behold, as I'm doing this other series kind of happens, kind of unintentionally. I just enjoy the trail cam process of like seeing what your neighbors are up to, basically. And I started posting a few images here and there. And then that the tone of them, that dark, the brown and the cream colors, then I kind of came up with that look. And then there's, I guess the full thing is that there's an image of a deer. It's daytime, but it looks like it's being beamed up or down. Like there's like an opening in the clouds. And that was the image that made me go, oh, I can get something different than what I've seen with people's trail cams. It looks kind of mysterious and magical. And then, so I would shoot 5 frames. You could set your camera to shoot 5 frames and then 15 seconds of video. And I just did the video because I'm like, well, what if I miss the 6th frame? You have to kind of, choose how you're going to maybe capture something. And I didn't really understand when the camera would release or any of these things. So in the video sections, I would often hear this twang sound, like this banging sound, and I never knew what it was. And then there's an image where I kind of call it the reindeer shot, where it's just the legs of the reindeer. I think it's the opening of the Deseret Magazine layout. And I was like, oh, the deer are jumping over the fence. So I had the trail cam pointing out to the field at first, because I knew that's where the deer would gather. And then I guess I didn't really see it because the deer would often walk the fence line, and I wasn't getting them actually jumping over the fence. So when that image happened, that's when I turned the camera 90 degrees to shoot down the fence line. And that's when I started getting the deer jumping over the fence at night. And that's kind of when the magic started to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at that image. You just have the forelegs, right? Kind of completing the jump. And another thing I learned from the video is that deer don't need a running start. There's deer.
Oh yes, that's amazing.
I always assumed, right, because the fence is kind of high, but the deer would kind of go up to the fence, be a little curious, and then casually jump over the fence.
Yep, and they think about it.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, do I want to do this? Now, admittedly, on the left side of the frame, there is an apple tree there. So a lot of times the deer were going over the fence to go eat apples. But again, I really wasn't even thinking about this when I set it up. It just became like, I kind of started getting excited about the images. And then after I kind of had like enough of great imagery of the jumping of the fence, then I took the camera off the fence and I put it on the ground in a little Tupperware container that it fit in really tightly, just so I could angle it just at the angle I wanted. Because then I decided, oh, maybe I should try to get the deer jumping right at the camera. And there is a image, I believe they put it in Deseret Magazine too, where there's just a buck looking right into the camera from the other side of the fence. And that's because it was on the ground and all these red LEDs lit up and he didn't know what it was. And so it did kind of stop them from jumping when, on the, towards it is what I was trying to get. But then there's another one where the deer kind of walks and looks right into it while it's on the ground. So yeah, I tried that and then put it back on the fence. and then the weather changed, and then we'd have snow. I will say I had it up for about 6 months, and towards the kind of like into the winter a bit, the deer really stopped coming around and jumping the fence. So the project kind of ended.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Um,
you say in this article that you regard this as a collaboration between photographer and the subject. What are you
oh
trying
yeah,
to convey with these the deer here?
that they have a life that we don't see, that they're, you know, free beings kind of wandering the planet. I want to say with no worries. I mean, they do have worries. They have coyotes and grizzly bears and black bears to worry about. But they do seem particularly free and have just the two things they have to do: eat and reproduce. And that's kind of it. So I'm a little jealous that they're not, trying to figure out technology, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Yeah. What do you hope the people who view this exhibit get from this?
Um, I don't think I ever really thought about
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
when I was making it. I was really just making it for me and people who follow me on Instagram. But when I got the offer I don't know if you saw that I had a museum exhibition at the Missoula
Mm-hmm.
Art Museum of
Right.
this work. It just came down last week, and it was up for 3 months. And so when they offered me the show, um, I think I just wanted people to experience this kind of magical aspect of, I mean, again, I had no idea what I was going to capture was going to feel magical, but it just does. Like this absence of humans from the landscape. I mean, the technology is obviously sitting there on the fence, but I often think about that. Like, why aren't there, wildlife preserves where no humans are allowed to go? Wouldn't that be kind of awesome if there was like some places set aside where no people could go, like not even wildlife biologists, where the animals just get to be without us. So I think people can, like any art project, can take from it what they want. I was really excited about the way the exhibit came out. You were really immersed in the like the feeling of the deer's lives. And then I also had the video was projected wall size, probably 12 by 10 feet big, which was kind of amazing to experience it at that scale.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating. You can find it at Deseret Magazine. You can also go to laurengrabelle.com. We're talking with photographer Lauren Grabelle. We're going to be talking about some other fascinating projects that she's been involved with, but after this brief break. Thanks for listening to Access Utah. I'm Tom Williams. We're talking with photographer Lauren Grabelle. You can find her at laurengrabelle.com. Some fascinating exhibits. Originally from New Jersey, she's moved out to Montana, been there several years, and we've been talking about her exhibit called Deer Diary. I want to get into this is a very fascinating project. It's called The Last Man. I guess that's maybe a place to start. Why'd you call it The Last Man?
Um, because of the way he lives. And that was something that actually attracted me to Montana in the beginning, was that people are self-sufficient here, and you figure things out and you problem solve, and you don't call the roofer to come fix your roof. You fix it, or get together with your neighbors and people help you do that. Again, it is changing here in the Flathead Valley rapidly, but I would say that's, how he lives. Like if he can't figure it out, it doesn't get done.
Mm-hmm.
um, so yeah, doing everything, he's a logger, he's got his own sawmill, cowboy. Um, yeah, just doing it yourself.
Now you never named the man, right? And you don't give the location, right? That's, I guess, to preserve this way of life that he's living.
Yeah, and also a little bit of mystery is good for art.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, not every detail needs to be told. The project isn't really a documentary. It's more of an art project than it is documenting his life.
Yeah. There's an image here I'm looking at. The last man is out in a stream, right, with some boots. He's trying to unclog this, I think. Here's the caption. The last man seemed to Grabelle the last of a species, the sort of man who has to repair his roof himself if it leaks, or chop down a tree, or build a fence, or doctor a sick calf. Because anything to be done, he's going to do it.
Yes. And I don't know where you're reading. Is that from Deseret Magazine?
This is from
as
Deseret
well?
Magazine, yeah. The captions, yeah.
Okay.
Deseret
Yeah,
Magazine.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've published me 4 times now, which is absolutely thrilling, to be honest. That photo is him with an axe actually it's a ditch that the beavers were building dams.
Oh.
And then it was flooding his hayfield. So it's this constant balance of you need water in your hayfield, but you also can't have too much or it floods it. So it was the battle against the beavers.
Yeah.
So there was, yeah.
There's an interesting image. And the caption tells me what this is. I wouldn't quite have known. There's some sheep in the foreground. And then the caption says, sheep grazing near a sawmill where slabs are burning underground to make charcoal for the hayfield. So
yes.
The last man makes his own charcoal, I guess.
Yeah. So, and the charcoal is, again, back to the hayfield, helps if you burn the slabs from your mill underground and you make charcoal, and then you take that charcoal and you put it on your hayfield. The goal is that it will it'll absorb water and keep water there. So again, it's, I guess, when, it's a battle of like having the right amount of water on your hayfield. This is not like a large, ranch operation where you would have an irrigation system. This is a small family ranch. So you've got to kind of, if it's dry, you need water. If there's too much water, it's this constant battle. But he was very interested in renewable energy and constantly experimenting with different things and different ways to do things naturally. He would also make biochar from the sawdust from the sawmill, and then he could coat it's been a while, cottonwood planks on his trailer to use that biochar as a preservative on fence posts and on wood planks. So yeah, that's the depth to which he goes to do it himself. And use everything.
What maybe choose a favorite photograph of yours from this project. Tell me about it.
Oh wow, my goodness.
there are a bunch of them. While you're thinking about that, there's one that really strikes me. The last man is standing in front of this overturned tree. It's huge, just huge. I guess it blew over in a storm, right? It's twice as tall as he is, just the circumference of the tree that's blown down.
That is the very first formal portrait of him I ever did. Prior to that, it was, him in action, like the photo of him, with the axe trying to, get rid of the beaver dam in the ditch. And we were hiking and I saw that, and it was just so incredible, the size of it. And then I asked him, can we do a portrait? And then that kind of happened, and it's called Man and Earth. And it kind of just really sums up his life, the whole project. It's definitely a lifestyle that it's one of the things I've kind of noticed with the number of people moving to the Flathead and the kinds of people that are moving here. There are less and less people that understand how to steward the land they're on and have no interest, no ability. They think they can just pay somebody else to do it. But when it's not your own land, I think there's a real disconnect. And I think it's really sad.
You write, just one more thing on The Last Man, fascinating project. I urge you to go to laurengrabelle.com and see this. You say about this project, I've become focused on having a new understanding of birth, life, flight, death, and transitions in between. I'm also making images of comfort while searching for myself in a land that's not about me. That's interesting. just the basic elements of life, right? In bold relief when you're living a totally self-reliant lifestyle out there.
Yeah. I think when you are in the suburbs or in a city, um, you are protected from the cycle of life. When the first steer went to the slaughterhouse, I went. I felt I needed to know what this is like to bring, this young bull that you've raised, to slaughter, and then have your freezer filled, with meat. Um, so it was, and then also the magic of, I would say, I'm not sure it's in The Last Man. There is another gallery right after it on my website called Ranch Sightings. And I've kind of split up the imagery, kind of separate, like, I don't want to say this, but like The Last Man and then the cute animals.
Okay, yeah,
um,
yeah.
and, and, a lot of people in my industry would say to me, those don't put the cute animals in the project. It kind of waters it down. But the truth is, life is harsh and adorable.
Mm-hmm.
Like in one day, it can be like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to be honest, I think my favorite image, I don't think I've put it in The Last Man. I think I put it in Ranch Sightings. There's a newborn calf and it's snowing. And he's in the herd. And that was just a magical moment for me. I mean, I love the image. It's calming. And I will also say most of this was taken during the pandemic. So you have a lot of stuff kind of going on that outside of my immediate world was kind of disturbing. And so that's what this idea of like looking for comfort kind of comes from. But I will say that I was shocked at how calming it was to stand in a herd of cows in the snow. I had never felt anything like that.
Mm.
It was
That
like medicine.
that's the image stood out to me as well. As a striking image. Um, if you just joined us, we're talking with photographer Lauren Grabelle. You can find her at laurengrabelle.com. I want to move on to so many fascinating projects you've done. This one really struck me. It's called Love and Death.
Oh,
It's basically the thumbnail, and I'll have you describe it as well. Thumbnail: a man is living out in the wild, wants to be buried on his property, but wants to be very sure that he's not moved or disturbed once that happens, right? So,
right.
tell me about this project.
So the story is about Henry and Joan Meyer, and the well, there's a couple backstories, like how I came across them. They live, or did live, down in the Swan Valley, which is a becoming less and less remote valley here in Montana. And they were both from New Jersey and met as teenagers. And when they were, I think, 19, Henry said to Joan, I want to move west. And they packed up their car and they drove west. And I believe they hit Oregon first and then kind of came back to Montana. And they were down in the Missoula area. And Henry told somebody, I want to buy land. And they sent them up the Swan Valley, which was really remote in 1951. And he came up, his car broke down. Some locals came out to help him. And he bought a piece of land and never left it until just recently. Unfortunately, him and Joan are both in an assisted living facility now. They're 94 this year. So I guess what happened is what you said, is that he loved where he lived so much. He never wanted to leave it. He wanted to be buried on it. And then he realized, but somebody can then develop over me one day. And then he realized, well, if I make it a cemetery, that won't happen. So he made his land a cemetery, and other people have bought plots there. You can still do that if you want to be buried in probably one of the most beautiful places in the country. Him and Joan actually have matching bookcases with handles on the sides that turn into their caskets. So they never anticipated that they would be leaving. And I will say that I have visited them a few times after when making this project, and then I visited them a few times after. Um, and then just a couple months ago, I was coming up the Swan Valley and decided I would, stop in and see them. And the gate to their property was locked. And then I went to the local mercantile and asked if the woman knew them, and she said yes. And then she put me on the phone with their daughter-in-law, who then told me that they were in assisted living. And it kind of
Hmm.
broke my heart
Mm-hmm.
that they had to leave their property that way. And I did go visit them in the assisted living facility, and I haven't finished editing the photos yet, that I did photograph them again. Um, and I mean, it was beautiful to see them, but it was also kind of sad that they had to leave, but they will be going back.
Right. When they
Yeah.
die, they will be buried there in this
Yes.
property that's now
Yes.
an official cemetery. Yeah. By the way,
Yeah. I mean, their home is there. The
mhm.
cemetery is up on a hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible, wild landscape. And it's just, they're both characters. They have
Mhm.
five children, and a couple of them do live locally, that take care of them. So, yeah, that's the story of Henry and Joan.
I'd like to fit in just a couple more projects here. Would time's running out. A project called is it Ovando? Ovando.
Ovando.
Yeah. This
Um,
is a town where a cyclist was killed by apparently by a grizzly bear. So that has reverberations, right? Tell me about this project.
well, I was got a call from Insider, like Business Insider. I don't know which one they're called now, to do this assignment. The article was in a rough draft, and they found me online and sent me to cover the story. I will say that so Ovando is at the southern end of the Swan Valley, which is where Henry and Joan are. So it's about 2 hours from me. Um, and it was a good fit for me, to tell the story, but the story ended up being very different than what the journalist had written, and ultimately was never published. Still trying to get the story published, because the story was kind of more about the trauma that the town and kind of endured over the incident that happened. So everybody was like, "Oh, this woman, she's such a great outdoors woman. It wasn't her fault." There was a bunch of things that happened, um, that it was just after 4th of July weekend. So there had been like a, barbecue in town. So there was probably smells and food dropped on the ground, and cyclists, and they have a whole, tourism industry there for cyclists passing through. Um, and so you've got that. And then this woman did the main thing that you should not do, which is bring food into your tent, which she had done. And then the grizzly came, sniffed on her head in the middle of the night. She was in a tent behind the museum and the jail, like right in the center of town. And she wasn't properly fearful. Like if that had happened to me, I would never have been able to go back in my tent, and I would never have been able to go to sleep, because I would know how dangerous the situation was. There were other people there who did get into the jail, which is like a hard building that you can get into away from grizzlies, because Ovando was at the southern tip of the Bob Marshall Wilderness. So you feel like you're in this little town, but you're still in the wild. So yeah, I spent 2 days down there, meeting the townspeople and finding out really how it affected them. And it was, pretty traumatic for them to have this incident happen.
I think one of some beautiful images. There's one of I guess the town as a whole under some cloudy skies. There's another of a gentleman I guess the store. He's holding a mug that says "Not a UN-free zone." I don't know what the politics in Novando are, but that was
Not a,
interesting.
not a gun-free
Oh, not
zone.
a gun-free. Oh, I thought it was on. Okay, that puts a new spin on it. Okay, all right. I thought
Yes,
there was kind of a progressive enclave in rural Montana.
it
Yeah,
might be,
it
might
could be.
be.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful project. Kind of that interface, right? Right on the edge of the wilderness, I guess, right?
Oh yeah,
And
I
and,
mean,
and how that affects
Ovando
people.
has. I think the sign. There's a picture in there of the sign when you come into town. I think it says population 50, dogs 100.
Uh huh.
or something like that.
Very good. Yeah.
My kind of town.
Yeah. We just have 2 or 3 minutes left. I want to make sure I mention this. You had a photo in Ken Burns' latest book. Tell me very
Yes.
briefly about this.
Yeah. Again, part of my, my on paper, my career looks great, but I will say I took a photo in 1996, and it didn't get recognized until 2023, I think. So yeah, Ken Burns put out a book called Our America, a Photographic History. I think that's the title. Just came out, I think, like 2 or 3 years ago now. And it was during the pandemic. I got an email from his editor that they wanted to publish that photo. I didn't know till the book finally came out, because the pandemic did delay the publication of it, like how she came across my photo. And she was actually Googling for a photo of a black and white photo of a Native American in the 1990s, because that's kind of when the book ends in that era. And there was a very deliberate editorial decision about kind of ending the book the way the book started. So my photo is right across from one of my photographic heroes, Sally Mann, a project she did on like rightfully decaying slave plantations in the South. And so the fact that, there's this image of the decay of slavery and its end, but flourishing Native American man in his sports car. So that's kind of what they were looking, and it wasn't on my website. I had once blogged years ago on Google, my blogger, whatever it was called, and forgot, about it. And I had put these images up that I had taken at a powwow in 1996.
Yeah, amazing to be included in that book along with your hero there. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we've reached the end of our time. You can find out much more about Lauren Grabelle, see so many projects and photos on her website, laurengrabelle.com. Lauren Grabelle, thank you. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much.